Hello. Well, welcome back. It's the last week before Star Wars break. Before Star Wars. And before Christmas.
And before Christmas.
Hanukkah's wrapping up.
Wait.
They're done.
Jake
It's the holidays.
is Jewish. He celebrates Hanukkah.
Yeah.
He just mentioned
Yes.
Hanukkah.
You just said that, and I celebrate Christmas too for the dog.
Yeah. So, Jake, is this the last day of Hanukkah or was that yesterday?
Last night.
Last night.
We made it through this year.
Nice. So what we're doing is we're wrapping up World War II. It's December 14th, and we're going to move on to the Pacific Theater. So last week we talked about the European theater. The United States had to open up a second front against the Nazis in North Africa, and that delayed the real second front, the invasion of France. That's the D-Day invasion. That D-Day invasion in 1944 is really the big opening in the European theater. So the 2 years previous to that are not as big. I mean, yeah, we're fighting and we're dying, but it's not having a huge impact on Nazi Germany because they still control most of Europe. So what's going on at the same time is a parallel war. This is a two-front war for the United States as well. The Russians are not helping us against the Japanese. We're pretty much on our own. We get a little bit of help from the British and the Australians, but the British have most of their emphasis on saving themselves in Europe. Well, I mean, they're mounting an attack with D-Day as well. They're part of that war, and they're also fighting in North Africa. They're also fighting in Italy. So the European theater is their main theater. Why are they involved in the Pacific at all? They still own Australia. It's still part of the British Empire. They still own islands in the Pacific. They've lost territory to the Japanese. They have physically fought the Japanese before we ever did. The British were fighting in Malaya. Bigger. So this part of the Pacific belonged to the British at one time. Burma, Malaya, Singapore. Where's Singapore? Singapore is a little bit further that way.
India still belongs to Britain too, right?
India, yeah, still belongs. There's no fighting in India. The only fighting going on there is for civil rights. You know, that's with Mahatma Gandhi. This is his time period. I think they kind of put that civil rights movement on hold for World War II, and then bring it back in earnest after the war. Is that right? Because they give them full, I think it's 1947, 2 years after World War II is when India finally gets its independence. So they must have been emphasizing independence during the war. And that brings up, just a side note here. World War II is going to have a huge impact on colonialism. This is going to be the beginning of the end of the colonial phase for Europe. Europe is going to lose all of its colonial empires because the war was so devastating. They just can't hold on to it. So they're going to lose Africa, they're going to lose Asia, they're going to shrink their empires. And those colonies are going to become independent countries either through a nonviolent movement like India, or a violent movement where you have a war going on to fight the British. Or you just have let them go, like Australia. Okay, so here we are, over here at Pearl Harbor. We're beyond the reach of the Japanese Empire, but that's not permanent. The Japanese they've been on a 10-year run here. This map shows the extent of Japanese control in the Pacific after 10 years of spreading out. So our job is to shrink their bubble and attack the mainland. Now, we did attack the mainland right after Pearl Harbor. We dropped a few bombs on Tokyo. Not a big deal as far as war goes. It was more psychological warfare for the United States. That was Doolittle's raid. We launched, we did the same thing the Japanese did to us. We took an aircraft carrier, the Hornet, off the coast of Japan in bombing range, launched the planes, and the planes landed in China after they bombed Japan. And then they sort of made their way back to the United States with the help of the Chinese. But that's not sustainable. There's no way we can keep that going. So what do we have to do? We are going to be, as you follow the map here, this is called island hopping. So island hopping is the campaign style or struggle we're going to come up with to fight Japan. There are literally thousands of islands. The Japanese have occupied, I don't know how many. I'm sure it's not 100, but dozens of islands have been occupied by the Japanese. Do you go and fight every Japanese stronghold? And the answer was no. Why should we do that? What a waste of time and manpower. Instead, we'll fight on the major ones. We'll hop over some of the occupied islands and leave them. What was a fortress then becomes a prison. Kind of ironic, isn't it? The Japanese have fortified all these islands, and if you just ignore it and bypass it and shut down any way of getting the Japanese resupplied in those islands, then what was a fort becomes a prison. They just stay there. In fact, there were the last documented surrender of a Japanese soldier on one of these islands that was ignored was the 1970s. There were surviving soldiers that were supposed to be evacuated after the war was over. They actually sent, hey, we're here to pick you up, the war's over, get on board the ship. Some people got left behind, and they would literally find these ragtag singletons that had been left behind through the 60s and 70s. So, interesting story there. I'd like to know more, but I don't. Let's get to that fighting. We're going to focus here in the southern part first. Why? Because if we look at the map here, Australia is next on the list. So there's a huge emphasis here to save Australia, because this could be a place where we launch attacks from. We don't want to be the place where we have to sort of save it from the Japanese invasion. So the Japanese have spread this way, and their next target is Port Moresby on the southern side of New Guinea, and from Port Moresby they can launch an assault on Australia. So we're going to try to save New Guinea, and we're going to go into battle here in southern part of the Pacific, here, north of Australia. And that is the Battle of the Coral Sea and Guadalcanal and Midway. Okay. By the way, this is some of the most brutal fighting of the war. The Japanese have a philosophy. What's it called? Did you write that down before?
It's like
A philosophy of warfare.
James
Starts
has
with a
it.
B.
James has it.
Bushido. Thank you, James. Bushido. Bushido is this very strong allegiance to the emperor and to the homeland and to the family. And your goal in life is to honor those people and the emperor with your life. And so if they sacrifice your life, so be it. That's the way it goes. You'll do that gladly. So the Japanese are going to have some very famous fights with the U.S. Marines and Army in the Pacific, where they will literally sacrifice themselves on the machine guns of the Marines. Does anyone know what these attacks are called? Well, kamikaze will come into play with aircraft later in the war. Those guys are following Bushido with airplanes. I'm talking about the soldiers on the islands themselves, on the ground. Banzai, yeah. The Japanese soldiers will scream Banzai, which Not exactly sure what the translation is on that, but they'll do these night attacks where they'll come at the Americans. And it's very scary, obviously, to be attacked by screaming banshees coming at you from the dark. Right? Banshees and Furies are like demons. And so they have this very Japanese soldiers had a mystique to them. Kind of like the Confederate soldier in the Civil War with their rebel yell. It would scare the enemy. And especially when the fact is you don't care if you live or die. So we're going to talk about a few of those battles that the Marines had to fight in the Pacific. Not only are you fighting the Japanese with this mindset of sacrifice, you're also fighting the elements. The Pacific is it's a tropical environment. Everything rusts or rots very quickly. There will be soldiers who are sometimes literally fighting naked because everything has rotted off of them, and they'll have to get new gear. If they don't have new gear, they don't have it. So it's kind of weird. So it's hot. Some of the battles are fought in temperatures over 110 degrees, and sometimes with no water. Some of these islands, they don't have water. You got to bring it in.
Back to the bonsai. Is your service bonsai?
Yeah, not like the tree bonsai. Bonsai.
Bonsai means 10,000 years. They yell it. It's like their empire is supposed to last 10,000 years.
Is that what it means?
That's a mispronunciation. The bonsai tree is like a mispronunciation of that word.
Bonsai. Yeah, so bonsai is 10,000 years of the empire.
Yeah.
Interesting, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's only lasted like 30 years.
Okay.
I was
So-
yelling bonsai and killing yourself.
Comparing turning points from the Pacific theater and the European theater, the turning point for World War II in the European theater is D-Day, June 6, 1944. That's where we turn it around on the Germans, and that's sort of the beginning of the end for the Germans. The beginning of the end for the Japanese happens much more quickly. I think this is one of the reasons that the Americans put an emphasis on the European theater, because they knew that'd be much more difficult. This 70-30 split, 70% of the resources going against the Nazis and 30% going against the Japanese, kind of plays out in the favor of the Americans, because the turning point comes in 1942, just the following year. That can't be said of what happens in Europe. So in that year, there are 3 major battles. And so I want to talk about them one at a time, so don't write them lickety-split here, don't make a list. Just write down Coral Sea, May 7 and 8, 1942. This is an aircraft carrier battle, the Battle of the Coral Sea. It's off the southern coast of New Guinea, around the corner from Australia. It's an aircraft carrier battle where the ships never see each other. It's the first naval battle in history where the ships never see each other. So, how do you fight a battle without seeing each other?
Fired?
What's that?
Battleship.
No battleships. What's happened to the battleships? There are no battleships.
No, it's talking about
What happened to the battleships?
talking about the board game.
Oh, they got sunk
Where?
at Pearl.
Yeah, Pearl Harbor. All the battleships are either sunk or being repaired. There are no battleships. Fortunately, the aircraft carriers were not at Pearl Harbor, so they go into the battle and they fight without seeing each other. How does that happen?
Planes.
Okay, radar. Good idea. No. Someone said, John?
Planes.
Planes. Yes. Aircraft. The aircraft will attack each other. Okay, so if I could show you where that's located here. Here's the Coral Sea. Coral Sea is right off the coast of Australia. So this is an aircraft carrier battle. Planes are being launched from aircraft carriers, finding other aircraft carriers, and dropping bombs on them. So the aircraft carriers are the targets and the platforms for the launch of the assaults, which is like fighting a duel. You've got guns pointing at each other, and the aircraft are the bullets. They're basically flying over the targets and dropping bombs on the aircraft carriers. And so And aircraft carriers are floating bombs. They're loaded with two things that you don't want to see catch on fire. Yeah, the fuel for the planes and the ship itself, and all the bombs the planes are supposed to drop onto their targets. All this is below decks. So if a bomb hits the deck of the ship and the fire spreads below decks, then you have a possibility of losing your ship. And so in the Battle of the Coral Sea, the United States is able to sink a couple of Japanese aircraft carriers, and we lose one, possibly two, at the Battle of the Coral Sea.
What do you mean by possibly?
Thank you for asking. So the Japanese the pilots noted that they had sunk an aircraft carrier, saw it go down, and then another one was listening to the side. It was called the Yorktown, named after the American Revolutionary Battle. The Yorktown was so badly damaged that the Japanese, as they flew away, checked it off their list and reported that it was sunk, but it didn't sink. It was listening badly to the side. They were pumping the water out of the ship like mad. They were fighting a huge fire on the deck of the Yorktown, and they got it under control. They got the flooding under control, and the Yorktown limped back to Pearl Harbor. It took it like over a week to get there because it was moving so slowly. And when the Yorktown pulled in to Pearl Harbor, of course, they're still repairing all the ships from the damage at the attack on Pearl Harbor. And the harbor master, the guy who's in charge of repairing ships, tells the captain of the Yorktown, this is going to take 6 months to repair. And the captain of the Yorktown says, great, you got 6 days. Get me back to sea. And the harbor master is like, okay. They load the ship with all the supplies they need to make repairs while they're traveling, and they weld these giant patches onto the side of the ship so that they can continue to pump the water out of it and make it upright and make it worthy. So they load the ship with wood to repair the decks so they can land planes. The planes can catch up later, right? They don't need the planes right now. They can fly out to the Yorktown and catch up with us later. So the reason the captain wants to get back into the battle is because there's another fight coming up. And the next fight is the Battle of Midway, which is right here. So here's the Coral Sea. It's May. That battle's fought. The Yorktown limps back to Hawaii, and then goes back out to battle at Midway. What's Midway about?
What's the date for the battle?
The date?
There's
So,
on the other side.
The Coral Sea was May 7 and 8 of 1942.
Isn't that to June?
And this is June. May, June. This is June 3rd and 6th. So it's just a little bit less than a month. Almost a month exactly if you look at the end of it. So he's going to get back to Pearl Harbor. He's got, it takes a week and a half to get back to Pearl Harbor. They're in port for a week to 10 days, and then they're back out. So it's an amazing story because Yorktown wasn't supposed to be at the Battle of Midway. In fact, when the Japanese saw the ship at Midway, they're like,
Bless you.
"Whoa, ghost ship! Where'd that come from? That was supposed to be sunk, a month ago." They had no idea. Okay, so here's the story of Midway. Midway was one of these. This is the turning point of the war, the Battle of Midway. And it's called Midway because it's midway across the Pacific. Right? The island is a U.S. held island. It's one of the islands we got from the Spanish-American War, with Hawaii and the Philippines back in 1898. It's a refueling station on the way to China. The Marines are there. There's an air base there, and so we're suspecting that this is the Japanese next target. If they can capture Midway, they'll be in bombing range of Hawaii with aircraft. So kind of an important location, isn't it? if the Japanese can put bombers on Midway, they can just bomb Hawaii at will, and they might be able to finish the job that was started on December 7th, right, of kicking the Americans out of the Pacific. So, vital location. So, other cool thing about the name Midway is it's also the turning point of the war, because you think midway through the war. This is an easy way to remember that. All right, so here's the deal. The Japanese are launching a surprise attack on Midway. We've suspected that that might be the next target, but we don't know. We don't know when it's coming. So the problem is, we don't want to send all of our aircraft carriers to the wrong location. So how do we know that's the location? When I was showing you that clip of the movie Pearl Harbor, they were talking about breaking the Japanese code. They had been breaking the Japanese code little by little over the years, and they weren't quite sure the code name for Midway. So they started sending false radio messages to Midway about their water desalination plant needing parts. So how did they get water in the Pacific? They had desalination, where they could take the salt out of the ocean water, seawater. And so this was a false message to Midway. And so then they listened for the Japanese radio chatter. And they started talking about a water desalination plant. And then they used the code name for Midway. Ching! Thank you. Now we know the code word for Midway. So they started listening to all the radio chatter about Midway, now that they know what it's called. And they figured out the Japanese were planning a surprise assault on Midway for June. So they sent aircraft carriers toward Midway, but kept them held back, out of sight, because you don't want them to be discovered. If they're discovered, they're easy targets. They can be destroyed. If you lose our aircraft carriers, then the war's going to be set back for several years, because this is really our only major weapon of the war, these aircraft carriers. We've already lost one at Coral Sea. I think we have, like, at the time, maybe 5 in total. We've already lost 1, so now we're down to 4. So, it's June 3rd. We're sending out aircraft to search the ocean around Midway. Spotter planes. Problem with spotter planes is if they spot the enemy also spots them, and they know they're onto them. So they kind of have to look from a distance and hopefully turn back if they see anything and not get caught. The Japanese begin to launch their surprise attack on Midway. They have 4 aircraft carriers, the same ones that were at Pearl Harbor, by the way. Same pilots, same planes that attacked Pearl Harbor are now attacking Midway. And the radio starts lighting up. We're under attack. Okay, so they know the attack's on, but the Japanese don't know we're right around the corner. They're launching this attack and they think it's a total surprise. It's not a surprise. We know that it was coming. So, but where exactly are they? It's a big ocean, right? Did they launch from north? Did they launch from south? Did they launch from the east? We don't know. So they send us spokes, like if the American attack, if the American plane or ships are right here, we send out, that's the hub of the wheel, we send out the spokes of planes to look to find the Japanese strike force. So one of the spokes is led by a group of torpedo bombers. It's called Torpedo 8. It's a squadron of torpedo bombers. They're these old, outdated airplanes. They're slow moving. They carry one huge torpedo. It's a 3-man crew. And as they're going out, they see one of the aircraft carriers. And they've just gotten to bingo. What's bingo? Bingo is the lingo for turnaround point. We're halfway on our fuel. If we keep going, we can't get back to the aircraft carrier. and we ditch in the ocean, and maybe we drown. Okay? So Squadron or Torpedo 8 sees the aircraft carriers, they're at bingo, and the captain tells the men, what do you want to do? You want to turn back, or you want to go for it? And everybody says, let's attack. So they know this is a one-way mission. They're not going home. Either they get shot down or they run out of fuel. So our Torpedo 8 goes on their run. Straight at the aircraft carriers. Okay? The aircraft carriers are empty on the decks. There's no planes because the planes are off bombing Midway. But they're full, the decks are full of bombs because they're gonna, as soon as the planes get back, they're gonna reload to take the bombs to go find the aircraft carriers, the American, because they've gotten some hints that the American aircraft carriers are nearby. So our Torpedo 8 goes in, and they have the full attention of the Japanese gunners. The Japanese gunners lower their guns on Torpedo 8, boom, 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 and as the squadron gets closer and closer and closer, ploop, 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 ploop,
Crossfire boys.
none of the torpedo bombers ever presses the button on launching a torpedo because they all get shot down. You think, well, God, that's a sad story. Yeah, true, but as they are sacrificing their planes and their lives going at the aircraft carrier, way above, up in the sun, is a group of dive bombers. The dive bombers have now total surprise because the Japanese have focused all their attention on the torpedo bombers. And as the Japanese are celebrating the sinking or the downing of all the dauntless torpedo bombers, all of a sudden their decks start blowing up from the dive bombers that are launching straight down upon them from the sky and dropping bombs on the deck of the aircraft carrier. And all of a sudden, so the survivors of Torpedo 8, there were a few that ditched their planes and were able to get out and not die. They're floating out in the water, and all of a sudden they see the Japanese aircraft carrier going up in flames. So, yay, go team. So this is the beginning of the battle. And there are 4 Japanese carriers involved. Now that the battle's on, we know where the Japanese are, but they don't know where we are. So they go after them. And they sink and destroy all of the aircraft carriers the Japanese sent. They can't afford these losses. Not only are they losing 4 aircraft carriers, they're losing all the aircraft and the experienced pilots. Those pilots are coming back from their bombing runs on Midway to find an oil spot in the water where their ship used to be. And you can't land on an oil spot. So these Japanese pilots are just ditching their planes in the ocean. A lot of them got picked up by other Japanese ships as they were leaving the area, but a lot of them didn't. A lot of them just ditched their planes and never seen again. The Yorktown. The Yorktown was the one that launched Torpedo 8. The Yorktown was discovered by Japanese planes, and, or was it I think it might have been a Japanese, no, I know what it was. Yeah, it was discovered by the Japanese. The Japanese attacked it. I think it might have been a submarine. But the Yorktown launched Torpedo 8, helps win the battle, and then she sinks herself. She goes down. The Yorktown was discovered a few years ago by the same guy that discovered the Titanic, Ballard. They swooped down on the aircraft carrier with their submarines to take pictures of it, and it's laying upright on the ocean floor, and Ballard said it looked like it could still land an airplane on it because the deck was intact and it was sitting upright. Could have landed your submarine on it. So the Yorktown, the ghost ship, helped win the Battle of Midway.
The what?
The ghost ship, the Yorktown, helped win the Battle of Midway. So, yay, Yorktown.
said the Japanese lost 4 aircraft carriers in that fight?
I believe so, yeah.
Oh my goodness. That
So-
like, sucked.
These two battles are aircraft carrier battles. The Japanese have taken heavy losses, but they've not given up any territory yet. So where they begin to lose territory is the Battle of Guadalcanal. The Battle of Guadalcanal is the first sort of harrowing craziness for the U.S. Marines experiencing the Japanese banzai attacks. Guadalcanal, there's no canal there. I don't know where it got the name Guadalcanal. It's strange. But it's a very long and drawn out battle. August 1942 to February 1943. Let me show you the map. So it's right here. It's sort of at the extent of Japanese control. By capturing Guadalcanal, there's an air base there. We will have an airstrip to start bombing the Japanese-controlled Solomon Islands. If we can start to get a foothold here, then we can start to do the island hopping campaign. So, the Battle of Guadalcanal started very quietly. The U.S. Marines were put into position by a small fleet of ships that took them to the island, and they fully expected to be engaged in combat before they ever hit the shore. And nothing happened. They all got on shore, no Japanese. Where'd they all go? The Japanese had actually faded into the jungle. There were not a lot of Japanese there to begin with. They had started this airstrip, and then when they saw the Americans coming, they faded back into the jungle. So the Americans were on the island. They started to dig in around the airstrip, and some of the Marines went into the jungles to search for the Japanese. What the Japanese were doing was waiting for the Americans to have a presence on the island so they could attack them in force. Right off the coast of the island, the Japanese came with their navy and struck at night, and the U.S. Navy left. The U.S. Navy was outnumbered, outgunned by the Japanese Navy, and this night battle, the Marines watched it from the shore and watched the American ships being destroyed and blown up off the coast of Guadalcanal. So when morning came, the Marines were by themselves. They were dropped off and basically abandoned. So now the Japanese are going to attack with their banzai attacks. And so the Marines are dug in around the base, and the Japanese attack at night. And the Marines are shooting with their machine guns into the dark. So many Japanese come at them that bodies start to pile up in front of the Marines' trenches. And soldiers have to go out into the dark and pull the bodies down so that they can continue to fire at the Japanese who keep piling up in front. That's how many Japanese soldiers keep coming at them. One of the first Congressional Medals of Honor was issued to a Marine at Guadalcanal who picked up his machine gun, and it was a World War I belt-fed machine gun. So it needed a gun crew, so 2 guys. It was mounted on a tripod. And the battle was so fast and furious and moving so quickly. And the only thing lighting up the battle was the muzzle flashes of the guns. So it's kind of like fighting in a strobe light, where all you see is the occasional face popping up in front of you. When you fire your gun, you can actually then finally see them. this Marine, I forgot his name, I should know it.
That's a lot.
All Marines were given, funny as it sounds, a pot holder, an oven mitt. Because when the guns started firing and getting hot, if you had to move, you had to pick up the gun, and it was so hot it would burn your skin. So they give these guys oven mitts to pick up the guns and carry them. I think his name was Joe Bastone, or Johnny Bastone. Not Johnny Bastone, that's it.
It's John Barcelona.
John Basalone, thank you. John Basalone lost his oven mitt in the chaos of the battle, but needed to move his machine gun. And his partner was dead, so he picked up the gun and burned all the skin off of his hand and kept on fighting the Japanese all night long until morning. So for his bravery in the battle and basically losing all the skin on his hand, it wasn't all gone. He healed and later was actually killed on the Battle of Iwo Jima, sadly. But John Basalone was one of the first to receive the medal. Come on. So this is the kind of way Guadalcanal went for months on end. The Japanese would keep dropping off soldiers on the island, and they would keep coming at the Marines, and the Marines would keep repelling the attacks.
So we just have this unsupplied regiment of Marines on this island,
Yeah.
surrounded by the Japanese,
Yes.
and the Japanese can't seem to uproot them.
Yes.
That's so
Yes.
weird.
Well, and it really emphasizes the tenacity of the Marines to hang on to the island.
Like they didn't like send planes or shoot them with cannons on their ship. They just kept sending people at them.
So the battle lasts a long time, right?
Yeah.
It's several months. So eventually, they are reinforced. Eventually, planes will come and defend them. Eventually, they'll get more supplies and more replacements. But it took several weeks of fighting like this before that ever happened. So the Marines on Guadalcanal are like applauded for being some of the toughest guys and surviving that dreadful warfare.
Wow.
Well, I don't.
All right. So now that these turning point battles have occurred, Coral Sea, Midway, and Guadalcanal, the man in charge of the Navy in the Pacific, Admiral Nimitz, comes up with the idea of island hopping. Let's not have a Guadalcanal every, 10 miles. Let's skip some of these islands and just fight the ones we have to fight. Well, we've seen what the Japanese can do, and that's what a lot of these island battles are like. They're brutal. The Japanese will not let us have the islands nicely. The Marines are going to take these islands at great loss of life. What you saw in Saving Private Ryan with the landing craft going ashore and then being shot up and destroyed on the beaches, that's what the Japanese are going to do in some of these island battles.
Did you see what the PowerPoint says?
Do I see what it says?
Dollar bills, yo. Dollar bills, yo.
Yeah, fun. Got tagged again. I didn't write it down.
Is it true though?
Well, Nimitz is trying to save blood and dollars, blood and gold, blood and treasure. They've only got 30% of the supplies.
It's true.
It's a shoestring budget. Yeah. So, Tarawa, Kwajalein, Inuitak, Tinian, Guam,
That sounds like
Peleliu.
Star Wars.
Doesn't it? Yeah. these battles here are fought at great loss of life. And we haven't even gotten in bombing range of Japan. But we do get back to the Philippines. The Philippines was one of our first major recoveries of territory. That used to be, or it was, American territory. And MacArthur had promised to return to the Philippines. MacArthur had abandoned the Philippines in 1941, or 42, or early 42. The Japanese had attacked Pearl Harbor, they'd also attacked the Philippines. And FDR ordered MacArthur to leave the Philippines behind. So he regretted doing it, and his famous words were, "I shall return." And by 1944, he was able to come back. What they discovered was that the Americans who were left behind in the Philippines were marched on the Bataan Death March, where the Japanese, because of their Bushido mentality, would never themselves surrender, hated the Americans for doing it, and so treated them like dirt. They marched the Americans who had surrendered at the island fortress of Corregidor 60 miles without food or water. And as soldiers began to collapse, the Japanese on the Bataan Death March ordered the soldiers to bury their friends on the side of the road. And their friends weren't dead yet. They just couldn't go on anymore. And they'd throw them in the hole and bury them alive because they had total contempt for the Americans for surrendering. When they finally got to the prison camp, they were treated again badly, and they were put on starvation rations. And so by the time MacArthur gets back to the Philippines, the survivors are emaciated skeletons who look like the Holocaust survivors in Nazi Germany. That's what the Americans look like. If you saw the movie, was it Undaunted or no? Broken? Unbroken, that's right. Unbroken is about, you really do see the Japanese mentality toward the Americans. They hate them, right? What does the Japanese officer say to the pilot? You are an enemy of Japan and will be treated so. And so they, even though they're prisoners, they continue to beat them and torture them and starve them because they hate them. So MacArthur got back to the Philippines and rescued the survivors. And this is MacArthur was, he loved the photo op. So he had photographers. He made sure photographers were on the beach before he was, so they could photograph him coming back. So MacArthur becomes a hero in the eyes of the American people, because he's always in the news. He's always talking about and showing victory, and he's a winning general. He will take the surrender of the Japanese after the bomb is dropped. He will be the one hosting the surrender. He will put Japan back together again, and he'll stay in Japan as an occupying general, and he'll also be in Japan when the Korean War starts. And he'll launch the attack or the counterattack against the North Koreans, and then come back to the United States for what most people thought would be a run at the presidency. So MacArthur is maybe not well known to you, but he was a rock star of the time period. Every American knew who General MacArthur was. Is that
It's almost time.
almost time? Okay. So let me leave off right here. We're wrapping up. When we come back tomorrow to finish the war, we're going to talk about the two, and as bad as all this was, we ain't seen nothing yet, because we still have Iwo Jima and Okinawa. Once we take these two islands, will be in bombing range of Japan, and that will be the end game for World War II.